Filter your thoughts. There is too much information in the world for our brains to process, so we are forced to filter it. If we don't, we go nuts. And that filtering process, we develop shortcuts to ease the cognitive load of making decisions. The shortcuts are called heuristic. A heuristic is a strategy we derive from previous experience with a similar problem. One heuristic that everyone knows is a trial and error, a strategy for finding answers to problem we face. It's also a way of thinking that trial and error is not always the most practical strategy. If we would rely on a trial and error to build a career, we would probably die before achieving that goal. Life is too short for applying that trial and error to everything. Another heuristic that's not practical is social proof. We often make decisions based on what others do or say. And my favorite heuristic is familiarity. It says that past behavior that led to good results is not a guarantee for future results. The familiarity heuristic also explains why we favor things and places we know over novelty. It's one of those things we see every day. We eat the same thing, we walk the same route, we make the same mistakes, we complete the same tasks at work over and over again. And then we complain that our lives are stuck or boring. No wonder you are making decisions based on familiarity. But who says that familiarity is always a good thing? It's good for certainty, but to achieve a breakthrough, you need something different. Making decisions based on a heuristic technique might ease the cognitive load, but they are far from practical. And often heuristics lead to the unsatisfying outcomes. If that's the case, take it as a sign that you must change something. Instead of relying on a heuristic to filter information and make decisions, rely on the main idea of pragmatism. True, it's what works, but don't take it too literally. Taking drugs for me, is what a contentious friend told me after I shared this idea with him. And he is right. You can take the idea too literally, but what can you take literally in life? Take the platitude, good things come to those who wait. For example, I don't have to explain that it doesn't mean you should sit at home and wait forever until good things happen. Look at the truth, is what works. Ideas as a filter that you can apply to all of the information that goes into your brain. When faced with decision, I ask myself, will the outcome of decision change the way I live? If you ask that yourself consistently, you will find that you automatically filter out useless information and only make decisions that have an actual impact on the outcome of your life. You force yourself to use whatever work, what's useful, and what impact your habits. For example, conventional thinking says that bigger cities also bring you bigger opportunities. I really thought that was true. That's even the main reason I moved to London, and yes, I did see a big opportunity for me at the time. But I also had bigger responsibilities and problems. Also, I didn't like the big cities. I hate crowded places, dirty air, and unreasonable high cost of living. Clearly, living in a big city didn't work for me. The way of thinking had a negative impact on the way I lived. That's why I eventually moved back to Leeuwarden. It's a quiet, I know a lot of people here, I can work less, make more, and I can drive anywhere in the city within 10 minutes. However, I will also realize that for most people, my way of living does not work. They might find it boring or not exciting enough, so what? What work for you? Stop thinking. Thinking is difficult, I know. I never knew how to stop. It's easy to stay inside your head for hours, especially when you are in your bed at night, but I can confidently say that 99% of all my thoughts in the past had been useless. I didn't do anything with my thoughts most of the time. I didn't solve a problem, nor did I try to understand difficult ideas or concepts from books. I spent a lot of time in my head doing this. What if I fail? People will think I am a loser. What if I get cancer? I don't want to be alone. Yeah, I called that thinking, but it was more like worrying, stressing, and freaking out. Call it whatever you want. I call it the preoccupied mind. And what? And the list goes on. I wonder what my boss thinks. What happened if I screw up and lose my job? I think he doesn't care about me. I just keep failing. Does he love me? Why does my life suck? Why is my life awesome and other people's lives are not? I don't care about my job. something wrong with me? I can't finish anything. What's wrong with me? I want to quit. I just have one question for you. What's the practical use of the above thoughts? Yes, I'm waiting. Still no answer, exactly. Those type of thoughts are not helping us, but we all have them. So how do you get rid of them? Well, I've learned that you can get rid of them. Remember, we can control our unconscious. We can only control what thoughts we follow through on. You only have to be aware of your thoughts, acknowledge them, and but never blame yourself or say, why do I have these thoughts? No one has the answer to that. It's better to be aware of your thoughts and decide what you will ignore and what you will give importance to. For example, the thought of quitting whatever I'm doing in my life has been on my mind as long as I remember. When I was in high school, I wanted to quit and just find a job. When I played basketball, I wanted to quit and later did quit. I can go on and on until I reach the present. No matter how much I love what I do, I thought of quitting and just walking away shows up in my mind at least 3 or 4 times a month. In the past, the thought cost me many nights of sleep. About 2 years ago, I had enough. I wanted to quit thinking, so I started becoming aware of my thoughts instead of always acting on every single thought I had. You don't control me. I would say to myself like a weirdo, but it works. I'm much calmer and happier because of it. When I want to quit, I still listen to it because sometimes it is a sign, but more often it's just some fear, and I refuse to surrender to it, and neither should you. Inside your control versus outside your control. If you want to have useful thoughts, here is a rule of thumb. Only think about things you can control. That automatically eliminates about 99% of your thoughts because there are very little you control in life. Only focus on what you control, things like desire, actions, words, intentions. What the useless thoughts? Anything out of your control that end without a useful purpose. Do you ever think about the past? That's a perfect example of a random thought that lacks a purpose. Unless you're reflecting on a past decision or mistake you made. In the case of reflection, you are doing something useful. But other than that, every thought about the past serves no purpose. From that point of view, it's useless. Ever fantasize about the future? That's also useless. I have discovered two main types of useful thoughts. One, thinking about how you can solve the problem. A problem is just an unanswered question. Put your brain to use and think about how you can solve problem. There are a lot of those on this earth. Two, understanding knowledge. That means this, try to internalize knowledge and think about how you can use the knowledge to improve your life, career, work, relationship. That's it. You can ignore every other thought if you are constantly thinking without useful purpose. It's because you haven't trained your mind yet. You have to get out of your head. If not, you will go mental. Everyone will. No exception. Ask yourself, is that worth it? Do you really want to waste your time, energy, and life on useless thinking? You and I both know the answer to that. Commit to stop thinking about useless things. Start taking control of your mind. All that worrying about the past and the future is not going to help you. It never did, and it never will. Don't trust your mind. Have you ever made a decision that seems illogical? Looking back, we are very logical being. Every person creates their own social reality. The way you view the world is completely subjective because we all have cognitive biases. The concept of cognitive bias was introduced in 1972 by two psychologists, Amos Tversky and Daniel Kahneman. A cognitive bias is a systematic thinking error that impacts judgment and therefore our decisions. My favorite cognitive bias is the attentional bias. It's a scientific evidence for the idea that your life is a result of your thoughts. The attentional bias states that our perception are affected by our thoughts, and naturally our perception determine our action and decisions, which make up our life. If you have negative thoughts, you also have a negative perception of life. That's what it says. Our mind might be illogical, but it's also simple at the same time. Take one of the most well-known cognitive biases, the confirmation bias. It explains the behavior of confirming our preconceptions. If you believe in something, you will try hard to find information, clues, and signs to back that up. In other words, you do everything to prove you are not wrong. Instead of looking at fact, you look at belief. And that's what all cognitive biases do. As of things writing, there are 106 decision-making related to cognitive biases known. I have read about most of them, and I have read several books and studies about cognitive biases too. My conclusion is that your mind can be instead trusted. Maybe my conclusion is also a cognitive bias. Who knows? What it comes down to this. Avoid making decisions based on our unbelief, obvious logic, and even science. Yeah, scientists are also human beings. That means they have their own cognitive biases. They are notorious for finding evidence for their preconception. The solution to making better decisions is not more knowledge. Instead, I have found that a pragmatic and neutral perspective leads to a better informed decision. Unfortunately, there is no such a thing as the best decision. If that was the case, we live in a perfect world full of people who made the logical and practical decisions. I like to look at it this way. There are only good informed and bad informed decisions. It's a very appealing to think we have got it all figured out because we have read a few books or studies. There is just one problem. You still can't trust your judgment no matter how much your knowledge you have. Being aware of that simple thought helps you make a better informed decision. Every time I am stuck in a thinking pattern, I try to break away by looking at a list of cognitive biases. It's free and easy. Just go to the Wikipedia for a list of cognitive biases. You will find that most biases seems like a common sense, and that's exactly the point. Cognitive biases explain our illogical behavior. Look at facts. I hate assumptions, and yet I assume that things all the time. When someone does not answer my email, I assume they don't care. When someone apologizes, I assume it's not a genuine. When I have a headache, I assume I'm ill. I know I'm not practical because assumptions are not fact. If you want to think straight, you discard all assumption and only look at fact. William James said it best in one of his lectures about the pragmatism. The pragmatism cling to fact and concreteness, observe truth, and its work in particular cases and generalizes. To make things simple, let's look at two ways of making a decision. One based on fact and the other based on assumptions. Assumptions are opinion, cliche, imagination, belief, and guesses. Yeah. And fact is about research, statistic, experiment, and tested. Does your product solve a problem, or do you assume it does? Are you able to raise money for your startup, or do you assume you will? Will you get a raise, or do you assume your boss will give it to you? Is the sale a done deal, or do you assume your client will sign? Do people like your art, or do you assume they do? I like to avoid assumption as much as I can. I prefer to look at a fact and then draw a conclusion. What if you can't rely on fact? Well, sometimes you just can't find fact, or you have to make quick decisions. In those very rare cases, I prefer gut feeling. Whatever you do, never waste your thoughts on the other people's ill-informed opinion and guesses. True versus untrue. In the previous chapter, we talked about looking at fact, but are fact also the truth? The answer is no. Confusing, right? It's just like a lie. For example, does God exist? I don't know. I never seen any evidence, but I believe that right now. Does that mean God is not real? This doesn't matter what I think. If God has an impact on the way you live, it's true for you, no matter what scientists say. Friedrich Nietzsche, the German philosopher who had a profound impact on Western philosophy, famously said, "There are no facts, only interpretation." Nietzsche was a man of a true self-knowledge. Sigmund Freud even said that he had a more penetrating knowledge of himself than any other man who ever lived or was ever likely to live. He was a very analytical thinker, especially when it came to his own thoughts. When Nietzsche said that there are no facts, he meant that we, as human beings, ultimately rely on our interpretation of reality. There is no way to confirm reality objectively. That doesn't mean nothing is real, and that's we are living in a big dream. We just have to realize that facts are not the same thing as the truth. That simple thought saves you a lot of energy because it means no one can be right or wrong. Don't bother with convincing people with a different opinion of the truth. Yeah, it is not a practical thing to do. Save your energy for other, more useful thing. Take your time to thing. I used to think the smart people are fast thinkers. Hitting on his feet, he was really smart. I tried it for many years. Every time I faced a problem, discussion, or when someone asked me a question, I thought quick, quick, quick. Naturally, my first answer sucked. Derek Sivers, one of my favorite thinkers, says he is a slow thinker. It's a common belief that your first reaction is the most honest, but I disagree. Your first reaction is usually outdated. Either it is an answer you came up with long ago and no use instead of thinking, or it's triggering a knee-jerk emotional response to something that happened long ago. Thinking things through takes time. Every time I gave a quick answer, I was not thinking at all. I was impulsive. Derek Sivers trained himself not to trust his first thoughts. That's also what he did when his email consumed too much of his time and attention. Being a public figure, Derek received a lot of email from his reader. Most of them contain quick 5-minute question, but as he says, if you get 100 of those questions, that adds up to 8 hours in the day. And after answering 192,000 emails between 2008 and 2016, Derek knew he needed to do something about it, so he planned to go off of the grid like a modern-day Henry David Thoreau. I was going to go hardcore, shut off all email and social media and make myself unreachable but to all but a few close friends and colleagues. I felt like the only solution. That was his first thought, but then I realized I could remain reachable as long as I don't answer questions, is what Derek writes on his blog. I'm glad that he didn't act on his first idea. His second idea is so much better. I have emailed Derek myself in the past, and I think what he does makes a big impact on people's life. What I'm trying to say is that when someone asks you a question, it's okay to say, I don't know. You can also say that to yourself. I have often been too hard on myself because I didn't have an instant answer to my personal problem. That doesn't make you dumb. It makes you human. Why are we even afraid that people think we are stupid? It's a perfect example of slow thinking. Instead of following your instinct of, I will prove them, you can take a step back and ask yourself, why do I even want to come across as smart? If you really think about it, it doesn't matter what others think of you. I think it's always better to take your time to think. If others think that make you stupid, they are the ones who are. No more quick decisions. Shall we book a business trip to Thailand? Are you interested in a speaking gig at the company X? Should we renovate the kitchen? Do you think we should fire John Doe? How about hiring another sales executive? Just a few questions others have asked me recently. And you know what? Just as I like to take time to think deeply about my challenges, I also take time to think quick decision through. Every time I said yes to a speaking gig, interview, or giving a seminar, I didn't think about it for long. When things are in the future, we are more likely to say yes. That trip is planned for September. It's no March, that's ages from now. And without thinking about it, you commit to a 5-day business trip or family vacation. But when September comes, you are either in a great professional flow, have other more important commitment, or are in the middle of something else. No, all of a sudden that quick yes from ages ago is on your mind all the time. Should I cancel the trip? Should I go? Should I go for 2 days only? Why do we make things so complicated while we can easily solve these things by just taking an extra day to think? That's all you need. Just think things through. Know yourself. For instance, I'm currently in a great writing flow. I don't feel the need to leave my city. I have a set routine every day and it works very well for me. I feel happy and I enjoy my life a lot. When I go away for even a weekend, my whole routine can be messed up. And then I need another 2 weeks to get back to my old self. However, I don't always have this mindset right now. I'm working on this book, opening a new office and buying a new apartment. I'm focused on a few important things, but other times I am more flexible and actually do like to travel, visit friends, business partner, and live a looser lifestyle. That's why I not take more time to make a decision. Instead of following my first thoughts, I say, please give me a day or two to think about it. That's all you need. Release your mind. Once I changed my perspective on life, I started training my brain every single day. I started reading 2 hours a day and taking extensive notes of the things I learned. I also started writing articles to share the ideas I learned in the beginning. I felt like a new world opened up to me. I couldn't get enough of learning more. I bought new books every week and devoured every piece of new knowledge I could get my hands on. But after a few weeks, I had a mental breakdown. All of a sudden, my mind froze up. I felt blocked. I couldn't think, read, or write. My head hurt all day long. That went on for a few days, almost a week. I felt ill and I didn't understand why. I couldn't even think about why. And when I felt better, I just picked up where I left over. This time, I went on for longer, about 2 months before I hit another wall, but this time, it was different again. No matter what I tried, I didn't feel like I was improving or learning a new thing, but I kept going and pushing through the difficulty. After this pattern occurred a few times, I finally understood what was going on. Training on your mind happens in stages, and before you can move on to the next phase of your learning development, you have to get through a wall. I believe that both learning skill and developing yourself happens in stages. At the beginning of a new stage, things are easy to learn because everything is new, but the closer you get to the end of the stage, things get more difficult. In my case, I got headache, but I was near at the end of it because after a shock setback, I got back at it again. At some point, you hit a big wall. That's a mental breakdown. It's also a point at which you want to give up whatever you are trying to achieve. Writing a book, starting a business, changing your career, or leading a group of people. When you hit a wall, everything stops. The book all of a sudden seems useless. The business seems to fail. The career you want seems unreachable. And the people have stopped taking you seriously. All it costs and all is lost. I have learned to train my brain to take this as a positive moment. When I reach a wall, I know I'm close to the new stage of my development. Instead of giving up, I'm happy. All I need to do is to take a break, rejuvenate, and let my mind recover. I hang up with my friends, play some table tennis with my brother at our office, listen to my favorite artists like Jay-Z, Bob Dylan, Kendrick Lamar, and Bon Iver, watch movies, a lot of them. I just take some time to relax and let my brain get stronger while I'm not thinking or working on anything, and then I get back to where I left off. I use my energy to break through the wall, and it always works. Draw your thoughts. Before we invented language, we communicated and thought in images, but for many centuries, words have been our primary way to communicate, and that's why we also think in words. When I think, I talk to myself, and when I take notes, I also talk to myself. Create a chapter about drawing your thoughts. It's what I wrote in my notebook when I came up with the idea for this chapter. I find that fascinating. One of the best known thinkers all of the time, Leonardo da Vinci, thought visually. How do I know this? I took a lot of his notebooks, which you can easily find if you Google them. Here is an example. Now, we don't have to become the great on drawing, but I think we can still learn something. Drawing frees your mind from the constant verbalization. I started drawing the images from my blog post over a years ago. My drawing skill haven't improved, but my article have. And one of the reasons is that I take them to think about how I can visually share my idea. I want readers to immediately get what I'm trying to share in the article by looking at my drawings. That's why I think a lot about visualizing an idea. Sometimes I draw a graph, sometimes I emphasize sentences or word, and I even make a simple cartoon. After I make the drawing, I often edit my article to make my idea clearer, and some articles even start with the drawing. This book also started with the drawing. It's the drawing I used in the From Chaos to Clarity chapter. Here it is again. Yeah, from scramble to circle. I made a drawing without a purpose. I was just visualizing some of my ideas. One of my ideas is that it used to be chaos in my mind until I found a way to overcome it. As a result, I think clearly. That's the whole drawing. I know it's a book. Be yourself, not what you should be. Conquer yourself rather than the world. Rini Descartes. I would like to ask you a few questions. What are you good at? What are you bad at? How do you learn new things? What are you passionate about? And what do you dislike? In other words, who are you? What's your DNA? Sure, biologically, we are all more or less the same. We all have organs, bones, blood, nerves, and we also all die. Why is self-knowledge important? I never had a clue. In all my years in school, no one ever talked about knowing yourself and why it matters. But it turns out that a lack of self-knowledge is the reason why I made the wrong decision in my life. The jobs I had, the girls I dated, the things I chased, the decision I made, the people I spent time with, I didn't match with my strengths, values, skills, and desire. My ex-girlfriend wanted to travel the world and live in a different countries. I hate that idea. I want to stay close to my family and best friend. I don't feel like I'm missing out on something if I don't live it in another countries. Having a sum in what is what makes me happy. Once you are in a relationship with someone who has a different value, it's a zero-sum game. One person always lose something. We break up. I have worked up. Yeah. I work in a boiler room, selling foolish products to people who didn't need them. Why did I have a job that made me feel bad about myself? I don't know. My best guess is that I wanted the money. I thought that was what you do, but I didn't know myself. Today, I know myself better than I did 10 years ago, and in 10 years from now, I will know myself better than I do today. And knowing yourself is step one. Step two is acting on that knowledge, and sometimes opportunity come my way and I feel like saying yes too quickly, but I have to take a step back and ask myself, is this really me? Very often the answer is no. I have found that most things in life are not for me. Most jobs, opportunities, countries, people, parties, lifestyles, books, they are all not for me. It's not about finding the things that are for me, but leave it or not. That's a very small list. Take time to reflect. We live busy lives, and sometimes there is no time for thinking. When thinking is not a priority, make it one. If you don't, you will end up like me. A few years ago, I didn't reflect on anything between 2012 and 2015. Results, all of a sudden I felt overwhelmed and didn't know what to do with my life. I had a true internal crisis on my hands. Since I had no idea what to do, I started reading more books, and I noticed that many smart and happy people kept journals. They also reflected more on their life. More specifically, they reflected on their things they learned, mistakes they made, and the goals they achieved. When I started daily journaling, I began with writing my own autobiography. It's not meant for publication, I mean it for reflecting and learning. If you don't know what to do to write about, write your life story. I'm sure you will learn more about yourself with every paragraph you write. I journal and make sure to read my notes once a week. That's all I mean when I talk about reflecting. I do it for three reasons. It helps me to uncover my mistakes so I can avoid them in the future. It helps me to value my progress when I read my past achievement and to get my thoughts in order to so I can second guess myself. That helps me to make better decisions. In short, I journal and reflect because it's useful. My money rules. One of my friends told me he hates his job. I asked him why. He didn't take any action. I need the money, he said. I automatically knew that he assumed that the only option for him is to quit. The reason is that we become to be dependent on something when we give it too much importance. There is a simple solution to the value and value of money. I lived by these 5 rules, money rules. Do not buy shit you don't need. Save at least 10% of your income every month. Stay out of debt. Invest your money in things that have a return. Don't be clingy to discharge money. That's what I have done for the past 3 years, and I haven't had a single thought about money. Actually, that's not true. I just think about money. Everybody does, but that's not a thing. I have about enough money in my saving account and I stop thinking about money no matter what happens. If you have enough money to survive for 6 months, you will figure it out. There is only one condition: invest in your skills. It's naive to think that we will always be able to find a job or make money. It takes effort, but since when it's that a surprise, I just make sure I invest my money instead of spending it. Investing money is not only about investing in the stock market or in real estate. I have no problem paying 3 grand for a new laptop because it's tool I use to do my job and that makes me money. Also, I'm never cheap when it comes to buying important things. I would rather buy a good jacket that last year's, then buy a cheap one that I have to replace next year. Simply put, I don't buy things I don't need. I don't need a new iPhone every year. I also don't need $5,000 shoes, but that doesn't mean I owned only one pair of shoes. I simply don't buy everything I like. Buying stuff in excess is not practical because I don't have enough space. Plus, I like to train myself to resisting to improve my self-discipline. Remember, money is a replaceable resource. When you are out of it, you can earn it back. You can say the same for time. Don't spend too much time thinking about money. Don't try to think your way out of everything. This doesn't make sense at the first sight, but when you think too hard, you often come up with bad ideas. That's because you can actively think your way out of everything. We have all had good ideas while taking a shower. Taking a shower, yeah, that's because we are not actively thinking. It's good to let your attention wander and stop thinking. This is also a part of controlling your mind. You have the ability to decide when you want to let go of your thoughts, similar to relaxing your muscles when you lay on the couch after a tough day. You can let loose of your thoughts. You can do that in many different ways. Some like to take a yoga class. Others prefer to meditate every day. The medium does not matter. I have learned that there are many ways to relax. However, only one thing is critical. You don't need anything to relax but yourself. You don't need yoga, exercise, meditation, music, synth, and whatever it is you think you need. Let go of everything. You can escape your outside world and go inside your mind to find a peace. If you can't do that right now, train yourself. Because aware of your thoughts, observe them and let them go. That's the whole process. You can do that anytime, any place. You don't need a different scenery or class to do those things. Let go and relax, and do it as often as you think is necessary. You will find that the moments you are not thinking are just as important as the times you are actively thinking. Be unconventional. I have grown to hate conventional thinking, not because I want to be different, because conventional thinking gives you conventional results. I don't like that. And if you like conventional results, you wouldn't be reading this book. Let's examine decision making for a second. The most conventional method for decision making is to create a pros and cons list. Benjamin Franklin is the first who documented this method. He wrote about it to his friend Joseph Priestley in a letter to him in 1772, and today we create the list all the time. What are the pros and cons of quitting my job, breaking up with my boyfriend, taking this job offer, buying a new car, starting a business? And then we take a sheet of paper, draw a line in the middle of it, and start listing the pros and left and the cons on the right. Even though I like the simplicity of this method, I stopped using it after one of my friends recommended me to create one of these lists. When my first relationship hit a rough patch, I actually made a pros and cons list for breaking up with my then girlfriend. When I think about it now, I'm ashamed, and it doesn't even make any sense because there are always factors that by themselves outweigh all of the other factors. Nearly all pros and cons listed for relationships are the same. Pros of staying in a relationship, like having someone to share everything with, you can have a sex, go on a holiday, yeah. And cons of staying in a relationship, less free time for myself, getting in fights, going to in-laws, and etc. It's always the same, and it's not useful. The same is true for quitting a job you hate. The pro is that you are free from a bad job. The con is that there is a lot of uncertainty. It's time to break free from this conventional thinking instead of binary thinking and start thinking more abundantly. It's not this or that in life. You can have this and that. I always thought I had to either quit my business or take a job. Also, many of my friends think you should quit your job and to start a business. Whoever said these things? When my business was not growing a few years ago, I just took a job at the large IT research firm. I did both things. I ran my business in the evening and weekend, and the rest of my time I did my work for the firm. Also, you can start a business while you still have a job. That's what I mean when I talk about thinking outside of the box. We always limit ourselves by narrow and conventional thinking. We always want to stay within a box. That's because we never take a step back to look at the larger picture. Take a look at the drawing below. If you are standing inside the maze, you will probably start walking toward the middle, right? That's what you should do when you are in the maze. However, this maze is different. The prize is not the middle, it's outside the maze, but you can only see the goal if you take a helicopter view. It's impossible to see the goal from the within the maze. And yet, that's how most of us live. We do things conventionally because that's how it's done. When you stop doing things the way they are done, you will start doing things how you get it done. Don't ask why. I am a fool with sending email, especially when it comes to selecting the recipient. I always type the first letter of a name and hit enter. I trust the computer and never checked whether the address I have selected is actually the person I want to email. I'm lazy often. It doesn't matter and I get funny responses back from people, but one time this simple mistake cost me $150K in business. I was working with two companies on a multi-year consulting deal. Both of my contacts had the same name, let's call them Wim. One Wim was an existing client, let's call him Wim A, and the other was a prospect, Wim B. Both guys wanted the same type of consulting of their company, but I gave Wim A better rate because he was a loyal customer. However, instead of sending the contract to Wim A, I sent the contract to Wim B. Yeah, that this time it was not an innocent mistake. Wim B previously had seen my proposal which had a higher total price, but when he saw that Wim A got a lower rate, he was upset. Why does he get a lower rate? Is that how you do business? He decided not to do business with us. I learned three things. Always double check. Small things can become big things and don't play favors. There is no use in asking why I made a mistake or why I always lazy with email. I just was, and I was wrong. There is no way to justify my mistake, and never press important detail off and say, it doesn't matter. Maybe it doesn't matter that you hit snooze every single day or that you ignore the details of your book, report, or movie. The point is that not striving for perfection becomes a habit. Don't worry about being a perfectionist. There is no such a thing. More often than not, people are the opposite. Perfectionism is merely an excuse. In reality, we are scared of what people think of our work. Either way, there is no point in asking why. When you deal with obstacles, challenges, or mistakes, instead, think about what you can do to overcome or prevent the things that are holding you back. Think about the details even more. I overlooked a small detail and it cost me a lot, but the lesson I learned was more valuable than the business I could gain. Details are probably the most important things in business, work, sport, art, and life in general. The devil is in the detail. It's one of my favorite platitudes, but I never followed the advice in the past. The main reason was my impatience. I always tried to hurry everything, sending email, making call, writing report, assignment, essay, you name it. I thought that it mattered that I got the work done, but I was wrong, because things often seem easy from the outside until you start doing them. This book took me 15 months to write. I spent countless hours researching the topic. I also spent hours on writing, editing, cutting, writing more, and editing it again, and then again. I also changed the title 3 times and subtitle even more than that. My first title was The Art of Practically. I initially liked it a lot because it sounds familiar, but as I started writing a book about thinking, I also applied the method to my own book, so I thought, what does the art of even meaning? I didn't have a good answer. I took that as a sign that I need to change the title. You know what's funny? My second title was The Power of Pragmatic Thinking. Like a genius, I came up with another generic title. Do you know how many books start with the power of? A quick book title search of the Goodreads with the power of gave me 3,800 results. That's a lot of book with those words in the title or subtitle. One of the things I have learned about writing book is that you must stand out somehow. No one cares about a better book on thinking. Instead, it's likely that you pick up this book because you expected something different, but with the previous title that I had drafted, I knew no one would think it would be different. 2 weeks before I published Think Straight, I started promoting it on my site and social media, and quickly my reader became excited. Soon email like this came pouring in. Can't wait for the book. Well done. I'm so excited to read your new book. What a determined person you are. I look forward to Think Straight. I love my readers. That's why I put in a lot of time to get the title right. At that time, no one had read the book, but based on the title, readers were already excited. And that was my goal. To everyone who emailed me before the launch, I hope I delivered. Thinking about detail is nothing more than doing your job. If you are a writer, your job is to write the best book you possibly can. If you are a designer, your job is to create the best design you can. You are not here to write one book and call it quits, or to design one product to retire. If you want to grow financially, spiritually, mentally, you must revisit the detail all the time. Never underestimate or overlook detail if you want to do a job right, and if you don't, it's better not to do it at all. Take thinking out of the equations. I don't want to become someone who only thinks and never acts. In fact, the only reason I think is that I want to do more with my life. I like to get more out of it because it gives me satisfaction. That's why I don't like to think on an average day. Sounds paradoxical, right? You say you should think better, but now you are saying you are thinking less to yourself. That's exactly what I'm saying. Improve the quality of your thoughts so you improve the quality of your actions. And always have an imbalance. Action is more than thinking. The best way to make sure you act more is to rely on habits. Take exercise. I have struggled with staying in shape for a lot of my life, and I was overweight for years. I always played mind game with myself about exercise and diet. Should I go for a run or go to the gym? I will have this bag of chips or hit the gym tomorrow. What days should I exercise? Monday, Wednesday, Friday, or maybe Tuesday or Thursday? That's too much useless thinking instead. I have made a few basic rules. Exercise at least 30 minutes a day, every day. Don't burn yourself out. Eat healthy, don't consume more calories than you burn. Keep track of what you eat and how much you exercise. When you combine a few rules, you have a system, and the system helps you to take the thinking part out of the equation. The only thinking you need to do is when your system does not give you the result you want. If my system would make me feel bad or gain weight, I would retain it. And even if it works, the system is never perfect. That's why I regularly think about what I can change or how I can improve my system. Don't live with regrets. Growing up, my grandmother was always around. She was a very kind person, maybe too kind because she made many sacrifices in her life for her parent, brother and sister, husband, and later on her children. That's also a part of life. You can live together and build a strong family without giving. But the biggest sacrifice she made was to live in the Netherlands for the last part of her life instead of her home country of Iran. As long as I remember, she always talked about the past, always. And especially during the last few years of her life, she almost cried every day because of regret. Fortunately, my mother, father, brother, and I visited her often and cheered her up. But through the love, I could see the regret. It was always present. I have learned many lessons from my grandmother, mostly about kindness and the importance of having strong family values. But the most important lesson I have learned was that you don't regret what you did in life, you regret what you didn't do. And when my grandmother passed away in January 2015, I decided to live by the lesson no matter what. For example, I always thought I wanted to travel the world and live in different cities. I know it's not an original goal. I speak to a lot of people who love that idea of freedom explorations. Why is that? I think a lot of it comes from pop culture. A lot of people idolize people like a Jack Kerouac and Ernest Hemingway, who were famous for their travels, and young folk now are inspired by social media personalities who also travel the world and share it on their Instagram feed. The medium might have changed, but the desire to travel to others and share your experiences with others has not. However, that lifestyle is not for everyone. But I don't know that before I actually started traveling, how could I? Some things in life you must experience to know what they are like in reality. No one can truly feel how it is to be an entrepreneur unless they start doing it. You can read all the business book you want and watch as many videos about entrepreneurship as you want, but they will not make you an entrepreneur ever. You will only end up living someone else's life. I would rather eat rice and beans so I can do the things that I love instead of having a job that makes me miserable but pays well. At the end of the day, this is your life, and the only way you can live with yourself is to follow your strongest desire. Just make sure you think straight so you eventually act on those thoughts. Never look back. I hardly look back on life. I never daydream of the past. I don't look at old photos all day long. I don't even think about taking pictures because I'm too involved in the present. Sometimes I feel like most people are stuck in the past. They live their life in the past tense. Instead of enjoying a moment, they grab their phone and take a picture of it. Instead of living life through a lens, I prefer to be present at all times. Now I must be honest that I fail to be 100% present. However, I intend to live now, and I know I'm successful because I never have the urge to relive the past. I'm too busy enjoying now. That doesn't mean I never stop to take a family picture. I just don't go around snapping millions of pictures that I know will never look at again. Think about it. When do you have the time to take a look at all your memories? How many pictures and videos do you have? How many old documents, old diplomas, memorabilia, and other physical things do you have stored that remind you of the past? If you are having a hard time letting go of the past, let me make it easier for you. You will never going to use your first iPhone that you have kept in your desk drawer for years. Edit that video from the weekend trip you took with friends. Look at your old school papers, essays and grades. Wear those old clothes you have in storage. Do anything with the object that remind you of your first date. When we hold on to a lot of things in the past, they form an obstacle to living in the present. The only useful purpose I can think for looking back is to learn. You can draw many lessons from looking at your past. That's why I like to journal. I regularly go back to my journal entries to understand my thought process at the time, especially when I sometimes it doesn't work out the way I want. I go back and try to understand why. But things didn't turn out as expected. After 178 people signed up after 6 weeks, I pulled the plug on the membership site. Many of my friends, colleges, and even paid members told me I stopped too quickly. Maybe so. However, I'm not the type to quit when things are hard. I have talked about quitting education many times during my 6.5 years when I was getting 2 degrees. I also talk about quitting my family business many times because it's very hard to make a living. But that's never going to change. No, instead, I quit my membership site because I thought straight. At this rate, it takes me more than 12 months to get 100 paid members, plus within for the first month. Half a dozen people cancel. So if I take cancellations into an account, it will take me even longer. Also, during the past 6 weeks, I have an obligation to provide exclusive content to paid my members. I want them to get something out of the membership. That pressures cost me a lot of time that I could spend on growing our family business or my coaching practice. All in all, a membership site is not the right strategy for me. Instead of making a simple calculation of 1000 per 78, I thought further than that. How can you get people to stay? How much work does it take you? And what are real alternative ways of achieving my goals? There are many other ways I can help others. There are also many other ways for me to make a living. That's why I decided to pull the plug on my membership site after only 6 weeks if things don't work out. It's not the end of the world. Make a decision, stand by it, move on, and only look back to learn. When I look back on my experiment with starting a membership site, I couldn't easily prevented myself from wasting a lot of time. It took me about 3 months to create the membership area, create content, write copy. Before I started, I knew that it would take time to run a membership site. Remember the chapter about details. If you want to do a job, do it right or not at all. In this case, I should have done nothing at all. Why? Because I spent too much time on running my family business, writing articles, books, creating courses, and consulting. From looking back, I have learned that I can only take on one big project for every aspect of my life. Say yes, look back, but don't start for too long. Life happens now. Spend your time well. Time is limited. Sooner or later, we all figure that out. And once we do, we start being more conscious of the way we spend our time. Thinking is a double-edged sword. It can help you, but it can also destroy you. The outcome depends on how you use your thoughts. Your mind is an instrument, nothing more, nothing less. In this book, I shared how I have learned to use my brain more effectively. Sometimes you have to think differently, and there are times you must stop thinking altogether. It's up to you to decide when you should deploy which method, but no matter what you do, don't spend too much time in thought because that's a waste of life. At the end of the day, thinking by itself is useless without actions, but like we talked about earlier, actions follow thought. Effective thoughts, effective actions. To clarify what I mean, I have made a list of what I think are effective thoughts. Making your life better, growing your career and business, visualizing your future, thinking a new idea, solving problem, and coming up with fun things to do with your partner, family, or friends. It's really not that complicated, however. Sticking with this way of thinking is very hard and takes work. Don't expect to become a practical thinker after reading this book only once. Like any skill, better thinking requires daily practice. I do that by looking at everything that happens in my life as an exercise for thinking better. Because if I don't, I start wasting my time on useless things like complaining, feeling sorry for myself, and not enjoying my life. We are collectively thinking so much we're missing out of life, and it has nothing to do with fancy things other people do. We all know that the beauty of life lies in the small thing. Did you notice the sunshine this morning when you woke up, or the raindrop? Did you notice the smell of your coffee? Did you feel the texture of your cereals? If your answer is no, you definitely need to get out of your head, stop thinking, and start feeling. Inner calm. There is only one end goal to all of this: inner calm. No matter what you experience in life and no matter what happens to you, your mind should stay calm under all circumstances. That's the ultimate prize of life. Mastery of the mind means that we control our mind. Remember, you can only achieve the through daily practice. Some people call it meditation, and others might call it mindfulness. No matter what you call finding inner calm, please don't overcomplicate it. You don't need a $10,000 course to learn how to find peace inside your head. Just sit down, be one with your thoughts, observe them, and then ignore them, and that's all there is to meditation. I meditate all the time when I work, exercise, writing, wait, sit, lay, whatever. I can always find the time and energy to go with myself and finding peace. I don't need anything to do it. That's important to realize. I have said it before, but it's so important that I will say it again. You don't need a yoga mat, music, or teacher to help you control your thoughts. You can go within yourself to find calm anytime you want. You also don't need a holiday, new shoes, or a drink. How do I know this? I control my mind. I decide what it does. So you can you. Think beyond yourself. Many of the ideas I share in this book came from the philosophy of pragmatism. If you Google pragmatism, you will probably read the philosophical movement was founded by Charles Sanders Peirce, a former professor at Johns Hopkins University. But if you look closer into the story behind the philosophy, you will find that it was William James who actually credited Peirce as the founder in 1898. Even though Charles Sanders Peirce was a well-respected academic during the 1880s, he had fallen from grace by the end of the 19th century. James and Peirce got to know each other during the 1860s when they were both students at the Lawrence Scientific School at Harvard. Peirce, once considered as the prodigy of mathematics and logic, went on to become a professor at Johns Hopkins University, but he lost his position in 1884 due to a scandal involving his remarriage. It's a truly sad story. And out of nowhere, in 1898, William James credited the principle of pragmatism to the forgotten Charles Sanders Peirce in a lecture called Philosophical Conception and Practical Results. Pragmatism means that one must look at the practical value of ideas. James believed scientists wasted their time on abstract ideas and theories that had no impact on people's lives. Would you change the way you live if a scientist proved how the earth was created? Louis Menand, author of Pragmatism, a reader, says the principle of pragmatism that we can never hope for absolute proof of anything. All our decisions are bets on what the universe is today and what it will do tomorrow. Regardless of what people think of pragmatism, one thing is sure, William just did a favor to Pierce by crediting the philosophy to him, and that is exactly what makes James great, but he didn't strive to take credit for something that he created, because without James' actions and promotion of pragmatism, the philosophy wouldn't exist, and Pierce would be forgotten. By that act, James did something meaningful. He helped a friend, Pierce gained some respect and even wrote several papers in his last years, and from all the wisdom of James, that's the most important thing I have learned. William James himself once said, "The greatest use of a life is to spend it on something that will outlast it." Practically speaking, there is no purpose doing something that outlasts you. You won't be there to see it anyway, but that's not the point. If we live our life every day with that idea in mind, that we should strive for doing, creating useful these things that matter to others, we end up spending our time on things that actually make a difference. When you do that, life automatically has meaning to everyone. Thank you.